Tyler. I'm an alcoholic. And our speaker tonight is extremely excited to be given this opportunity to speak in front of all these people. And, it's a guy that I've had the pleasure of sponsoring in the last year, man. And, he's probably one of the most amazing transformations I've seen in a while, man. So I'm excited to hear his story, and here's Chad.
Yeah, Chad!
Chad, alcoholic. Chad! I wish y'all would have taken a little bit longer on the readings and stuff. I'm extremely nervous, so y'all just bear with me. But I want to say a few things first. Mohead and Andrew, I don't really know y'all too well. I know you come down to the foundation. I always listen to what y'all have to share, and I know you're working a good program. And I do appreciate y'all coming back because it gives people like me hope, that something is better on the other side, so I really appreciate that. Andrew, I'm glad you're not going crow anymore, whatever that means. I'll go ahead and do Brendan and Tyler together too as well, man. And man, those two saved my life. I know I went back out from the last time or whatever, and I was completely broken, and I only had one person I could call, and that was Brendan. And dude, you immediately picked up the phone and came and got me as quick as possible. There was no chance for me to second guess or run away from that decision, man. And yeah, and he picked me up, and he talked to Billy for me and got me back in the foundation, took me to the hospital and everything, man. And I really appreciate that. And Tyler, my sponsor, he's a piece of crap, but but I do love him. He's helped me through the steps, man. Helped me realize a lot of character defects I've had. When I get a little squirrely, man, he's there to remind me where I was, not long ago, and it puts things into perspective. And I'm able to humble myself and be grateful for the things that I do have today. So he keeps me on my toes about that. So I really appreciate it. So happy birthday, y'all. And thank you for allowing me to speak, even though, a little nervous. So I'm supposed to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Again, I'm Chad. I'm an alcoholic. Chad. And my sobriety date is August 8th, 2021. And I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I am not sponsoring anyone yet, but I am looking for sponsors currently. Sponsees, sorry. Yeah, sorry, you're fired, Tyler. Yeah, I'm looking for sponsees, I'm sorry. Again, nerves. All right, so I'll just kind of dive right in. I was born at University Hospital, I believe, but I grew up in Aiken. My whole family's from up north, Philadelphia, so I spent a lot of summers and winters there. Really, my childhood was not good. I don't want to say it was necessarily bad either. I mean, I had the things, that I wanted, but I didn't necessarily have that love and connection with my family. So I kind of talk about that a little bit. And so my mom and dad got a divorce when I was young or whatever. And, so that kind of messed me up. I was at that age where I kind of don't really know what's going on, but know exactly what's going on. I just understand that they're splitting up and we are no longer a family, and we got to move from our bigger house to a smaller house, just a bunch of changes. And it really messed me up for a while. And I know, during that time, I just felt confused and lost. I felt, different immediately because my parents had divorced, and most of my friends at that time, had that eclectic family, that whole, white picket fence type deal. Like, it seemed like they all had that, and I no longer had that. So I already felt a little out of the loop with them. And So time goes on a little bit, you know, dealing with the divorce, going to dad's on weekends, this and that. And so my first drink was actually at my dad's in like 3rd grade. I go by grades. I can't remember actual years, how old I was. But so being from up north, you know, naturally we're hockey fans. And the Flyers made the playoffs and everything like that. And my older brother made a joke about, I'll bring the beer, you know, and all of us are like, you know, like, I'm like 8 or something like that. He's 13, 14, and then my oldest is like 15 at the time. And so my dad let me have a beer while we were over there watching the Flyers game, and it was awesome. It was a Zima, of all things. But being the small little child that I was, you know, not even 10 years old, it put me in a good little buzz, you know. And I remember playing some computer game on like the Windows 98, you know, it's like some space game, and I was just enthralled by it. You know, this makes life good. Whatever it is, this makes life good. And, you know, I can't have it for a long time, of course, you know. So like, you know, that's my first drink, and there's a big space between my next and so on. But I know that, you know, my dad started acting funny a couple months later, and he got diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is brain cancer. So about like 6-7 months after that incident, I got to watch him slowly get worse and worse, and gets to a point where they fly him to Philadelphia for a better hospital and try and operate, and they can't save him. So, you know, we fly up there, and I see my dad. He's basically, you know, he can't talk or anything like that. He can't really move, you know, just, he already looks dead. And, you know, I went to go tell him, you know, about my highest score of bowling, of all things. He loved bowling. And went to go tell him that, and I just cried and left the room. I couldn't handle it, you know, and you'll see that running from situations is exactly what I do my whole life. And that was the first instance I remember doing that, is not being able to handle that situation and my emotions, so I ran. So again, you know, that sets me apart from all my peers, you know, fatherless, single mom, this and that. And, you know, time goes on, all that stuff. Everything else is somewhat normal. I start to realize, you know, because I feel kind of out of place, I started to put on masks and hang out with different groups. So I don't want to say I didn't fit in with anybody in middle school and high school, because I found a way to fit in. I found a way to lie and manipulate and just completely not be myself. You know, everyone in school knew me, didn't necessarily get invited to parties, but I could show up to one and they'd be all cool with it just because I'm that type of person, you know. I put on a good front is what I do. But I never get close with anybody, because death and fear of people leaving is a serious, you know, concern of mine. It's a serious fear of mine. Yeah, I mean, so that just kind of continued all through middle school and high school and all that stuff. And high school, I started to experiment. I could get weed then. I couldn't really get alcohol. I didn't know the right people. So, you know, I started smoking a little bit of weed here and there. There are drugs in my story, by the way. I'll try not to mention them too much, but I'll be honest, this is my first time, so I have no idea what's about to come out of my mouth from here on out. So, you know, I'm doing that and everything, and I'm playing soccer as well growing up. And one thing I should mention too, while growing up, so my mom, I have a little sister and 2 older brothers. And at this point, my little sister has been born and everything like that. She's much younger than me. And my mom started going out drinking not long after my dad died, and I'm raising my little sister pretty much, you know. So I'm going from school to home. She goes from work to out drinking, and I'm taking care of my little sister. So my grades are never that good because I'm just exhausted, you know, and part of that's an excuse. You know, I just kind of just didn't want to do it. But, you know, a lot of my teachers used to always say, man, you're so smart, you ace these tests, but like you never do homework. I'm like, well, you know, I got I got priorities, man. Like, I got to take care of my little sister. So I pretty much, did that all through school as well and everything like that. And it was just, but I never opened up to anybody about the stress I was going through, I just kept everything well hidden, and that's just what I do. Is keep everything hidden, hide, and run. And good God, so much time. Yeah, so anyways, back in high school, oh yeah, with my mom as well. So after a while, she kind of stops drinking, and she starts verbally abusing me, telling me bad things, basically. I've been told, like things would be better off without me, and so on, like a bunch of stuff like that. But she would make up for it by taking me to my soccer games and just buying me things. So I had what I wanted, but that was her way of showing me love. But it was never through any sort of actual emotional connection. So, I know in high school for a long time I was searching for, some sort of emotional connection. Something that's just something that's going to fill that hole in my heart, because I've been feeling that since I was little, and I eventually find it in alcohol and other substances. But that's just what I go through, man, is trying to find that constantly. And that's part of the reason why I wore different masks and everything, is to get someone close enough on my side that I can feel that. So I ended up getting a soccer scholarship and getting a full ride to USC Sumter, just an offshoot of USC. And I go there and basically become a big pothead, super what's the word, hippie, all that stuff, grew my hair out back when I had hair. And it was just cool with everything, and no matter what happened, I was cool with it. Everything was cool. And so I continued to do that, and I'm drinking too, because this is college, man, you gotta drink. And I have an apartment on my own because my dad left behind some money, so I'm able to get money out of the trust and get this apartment. So naturally, I have the parties at my house, and my fridge is literally nothing but beer. My freezer's nothing but vodka, maybe I don't know, some chicken nuggets or something. Absolutely nothing nourishing food-wise. So that's how I went through college, and I met a really close friend of mine, and me and him, I would go there and we'd smoke and drink and all that stuff, and we became really close, man. And he had a fiance, and one night I was really messed up, and she took advantage of me. And that's where things started to really progress and take off. Because, I grew up, men don't, get taken advantage of, and this and that, between the, toxic masculinity in school and all that stuff, sports teams, all that. So I hide that, I don't tell a soul. Instead, I just start drinking real heavy. That really messed with me for a long time, and I held that in really honestly until I did my fifth step this time around. And that's something that, to this day I still think about a little bit, man. And part of it, I talked to my sponsor about it. I want to make amends to him, but I can't because, can't cause harm to them, They may cause harm to him, And I don't know, that just messed with me for a long time. So I started hitting the bottle heavy, drinking all the time. In terms of school, I pretty much just stopped going. I'll be honest, actually. Let me backtrack. I only went for the first 2 weeks, anyways. So, and this was a month and a half in, but that was my excuse to just stop. So I managed to like convince my mom and family and stuff like that I'm doing great, you know, I'm going to class and all that stuff, when really I'm just getting messed up, no longer going to school. I even managed to enroll for the second semester but never show up at all again. And you know, naturally, like, you know, my mom found out and was like, you gotta move back. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, having the time of my life, you know, and I really wasn't, you know. I was at this point, I'm completely miserable, you know. I dealt with misery growing up and all that stuff. I never was truly happy growing up. You know, there were good moments, of course, like that, but when it came to that alone time, man, I could not be by myself. I could not be by myself without thinking that I wish this would end, that I wouldn't have to live life. So I've been that way for as long as I can remember. And so I came back, and my brother gets a rare blood disease and all that stuff, so he's in and out of the hospital, which I'll get to that in a little bit, but that happens basically right when I moved back. You know, I'm telling all my friends, you know, yeah, I had to move back because my brother's sick and all that stuff, like I was doing good or something like that, but I really wasn't. So I find a job because, you know, I moved back in with my mom, and she's like, you got to get a job, you know. So I got a job at Sonic, of all things, over in North Augusta, and that's where I met a friend of mine. And so after work, me and him drink every night. We throw parties at his trailer. You know, he pretty much has the whole trailer to himself, so we just get cheap vodka, cheap beer, play beer pong all night, you know, the whole 9 yards. And I continued to do that for like 2 or 3 years. And at some point in that, you know, other substances and pills were getting into the mix. And, you know, that really kind of just took off from there. That's when everything just went completely downhill. There was no sobriety for me from then on for, you know, for the 10 years basically. And so I get heavy into pills, and I start getting to a point where I can't go without it at all. So I start stealing from my brother, who has this rare blood disease and everything like that, and he needs them. He's in a lot of pain, but I need them too, of course. I'm gonna get sick, don't you know? Because it's all about me, you know. And so I start stealing from him, you know, and it gets to a point where I start stealing from family, this and that. And even though I didn't have the best, you know, growing up life with my older siblings or mother, you know, I would never stoop that low, you know, but I did anyways. And I kept going with that, man. And really that just progressed. And started stealing stuff from my little sister, who's my whole world, you know. I stole her school laptop just to sell it, just to get a little bit of something. And, you know, absolutely no remorse. At that time, no remorse whatsoever. Because that's what I needed to do to get what I wanted to get, so I can keep hiding and running from my emotions. And so I kept doing that for a long time, man, and eventually I graduate to harder stuff. And I mean, I got bad real fast. You know, I realized, someone told me basically that it's cheaper if I just go harder. You know, so that's what I did. That's kind of like my first experience. They're like, you know, like instead of buying like 10 pills, you can buy like heroin. And I was like, okay, let's try it out. And it went well for that first time. And then after that, it did not. So, you know, years and years of me getting sick, going to get something, you know, trying to steal something, this or that, just trying not to be sick, trying to run away, trying not to feel anything at all, trying to ignore the fact that I'm missing something and I'm trying to find it but cannot find it. Trying just to ignore everything that I can. And yeah, man, it just really progressed. But then when I hit 25, you know, the rest of that money from my dad came in for that. So, for that he left behind for me, you know. And so I'm good for another 4 years. I can keep doing what I'm doing, you know. And that's what I do, man. And things get real bad. And finally, I spend all $30,000 of that on nothing but drugs and alcohol, and just stay messed up, man, and constantly in and out of the house, staying on people's couches, somehow weasel my way back into my mom's house, this and that, you know, for a really long time. And I continue to do that. And 2017, you know, I finally got to a point where I run out of money, you know, of course, because, you know, there's no other options at this point. You know, my family starts locking the house, so, you know, I don't see why they would do that. But so I go to my first rehab, and it is awful. It is god awful. Bed bugs, all that, you know, the whole 9 yards. I hated it there. So naturally, you know, I let 2-3 weeks time, and I did what I did best. I manipulated the situation, said, man, they got bed bugs, man. You know, there's people here that are doing stuff, you know, this and that, and get my way out of there is basically what I do. And that's, I mean, I did hate it, I mean, and all that stuff, and like, but I got absolutely nothing out of it. And that's because I didn't want to get anything out of it, because I don't think I was done. I had more in me. So I continued to do that. Get to the Hale Foundation in 2019, and I remember detoxing for like a week, and they sent me to Serenity before they would admit me, you know, because I was in there with the shakes and everything like that, and Serenity is terrible, not a good place. You know, you got people just walking around like, I don't know, just crazy people. And not like I was any better, though. I was really shot out at the time. So, you know, they were probably looking at me like, phew, I don't want to be like that guy. And, you know, so that was an experience, you know, and that's it's funny because at that point, like, I'm like, man, this is my spiritual awakening. And it was not. It ended up not really being that. So I get to the foundation, you know, and this is my first introduction to AA. Was my first time at the foundation, 2019. Got in there in November. And, you know, I asked, no, actually I didn't ask Brendan to be my sponsor. I think I shared at like breakfast or something like that. And he just walked over to me and he was like, hey, so I've been there, you know, you remind me a lot of me. You got a sponsor? It's like, no. He goes, good, I'm your sponsor. And so that's how Brendan became my sponsor the first go around. And so we start working the steps, and I do a little bit, and I'm getting relief, you know. I'm starting to realize that, like, my issue is all me. You know, it's not the outside world. It's not my dad dying. It's not, you know, the verbal abuse I get from my mom. It's not any of that. It is me. You know, and something that happened during that time too is Joe Ward. We were doing a meeting, and he hung up a mirror like across the room, and it's a small room, you know, and he gets someone to stand up, and he's like, all right, now turn around, what do you see? And he's like, the wall. And he's like, no, two steps to the left. And he looks, and he's dead in the mirror, and he goes, my sub, he goes, yeah, see that? That's your effing problem. And so we're so we're all laughing, you know, but you know, it took a second, and then it registered, you know. That was probably the first instance, you know, before me and Brendan started working through steps. That was probably my first instance where I was like, I'm the problem, you know. And at first I kind of wanted to be mad, like, who does this guy think he is? You know, he's got all these years of sobriety, and I'm sitting here like, you know, still shaking a little bit out of detox, like, who is this guy? But that's the first instance I start realizing, you know, I'm the problem, you know. And, you know, I start realizing that that I have a lot of character defects that I need to work on. And, but it wasn't enough, you know. I still needed to go back out at least one more time, you know. Maybe it will get better. And, you know, the age-old story, it did not get better. It got way worse and way faster. So, but how I left was terrible too. So Billy started working at the foundation. So at first it was Sladen. He pretty much let me do what I want. I flew under the radar. I don't want to say he let me do what I want, but I was able to fly under the radar, miss meetings, go to work at night, this and that. And so Billy gets the job, and he's taking it way too serious. Way too serious. He's wearing a tie and everything like that. Like, what are you doing, my guy? So naturally, I go from like being able to do what I want, and at first, I'm able to, I don't want to say necessarily fool him, but he lets me move above Sibley, which is like the suite there, room to myself and all that stuff. And then about like 2 weeks later, he kicked me back to Joe's house. He was like, nah, dude, like, nah. And so that's, that I caught a resentment real fast about that, and that's how I left though. Like, I got my own place and literally just packed my bags, got my boss at the time to pick me up, threw my bags in the back, didn't tell a soul, and just left. Didn't tell anyone. So I'm sure that was fun for Brendan to find out I left. He'd just show up, probably for spirituality and more, and was like, "What the hell is this guy?" And so I lasted about, I'd say a week and a half. And the urge was there. I was not working a program. I left on a resentment. I was angry at the foundation. Like, how dare Billy come in here and tell me what to do? Like, and I was just angry about it. I stopped talking to everybody. I completely shut everyone out. Everyone that I had gotten close to, I shut out. And so, I hit up my guy, and it's just awful from there on out. And I move in with somebody else that was in the foundation that I got to know, and me and him lived together for a good while. And basically, the way I left was just stealing his stuff and just leaving, and was homeless before I called Brendan, and Brendan picked me up. And I was done. That's it. Couldn't do it anymore. I weighed 115 pounds. Roseanne just sent me a picture. I look like death, like I was on death's door. Hadn't showered, all that stuff. Brendan comes, picks me up, takes me to the hospital. Decided 1013 myself, try and get me some detox. He's like, dude, you gotta sell this. Like, you gotta tell him you want to kill yourself. He loves the story, by the way. And so we go into the hospital and everything. And this whole time he's telling me about how, like, I really gotta sell this. You gotta be serious about this. You gotta really tell him you're really about to kill yourself. Like, you're just bad off and you're done. Like, and so I get in there, and the lady asks me what's going on, because we finally get seen, and I just start bawling. I'm crying. I'm like, I want to kill myself. Like, and I'm dead serious though. Like she's like, he's just sitting over there like, didn't have to sell it. He's feeling it. At that point I really did. So like, I really didn't have to sell it. So I spent a day there. They pretty much kicked me out because of COVID and all that stuff. And I walked back to the foundation from the university hospital because I was done. Like I said, and I'm detoxing like crazy, but somehow, some way, my higher power got me back to the foundation. Walking 15 blocks, just so hot, like 98 degrees or something like that. Like, I'm just drenched in sweat, having to stop every like 15 yards, dying. Get there, stay in bed for like a week or two or whatever. Billy's like, this is why we don't let people detox here, because I'm coming off of everything at this point. And so I finally make it out, man. I pick up my white chip. I asked Tyler to sponsor me. I kind of talked to Brendan first, and Brendan was like, that's a good idea. So we started working through the steps, man, and took our time. Not really took our time, but read through step 1 and everything like that. We did everything through the book. And that's exactly what I needed. I could easily say my life was powerless and unmanageable, but reading through it and kind of relating to, different instances of that through the book, you know, really highlighted some things in my life. And, you know, we just kept working through the steps. And I know on my fourth step, like I said, man, I was completely honest this time, man. I added that about, you know, what happened to me in college and so many other things. And I just let it go, man. I told him everything. And it's funny because I remember we did it at his house, and he let me, you know, the hour by myself and everything like that. And he came back in, he's like, man, it smells like vape juice and depression in here. And I was like, yeah, you're right about that. And I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Something happened, man. Like, there's just small spiritual experiences that happen, man. I went out raccoon hunting with someone. I've never done that in my life. That is not my thing. No idea what's going on, but I was able, like, we were driving out during sunset, and I was able to look around and see, you know, the beauty around me. That, you know, things are good sober, man. I'm able to see everything around me, you know, and it's just so many instances of that throughout the foundation. And I'm able to see that I can have fun in sobriety, you know. I don't have to dwell on sad feelings or anything like that. And time just goes on, man, and I don't know, just things are great today. We just worked through all the steps, man. I've made my amends, you know, and really things are great, man. I just got a car. I'm broke as hell, but I'm happy. Like, so I don't know. I've got a good job today, thanks to Brendan helping me out, and I get to wake up with these guys, somewhat unfortunately, but also fortunately. I don't know, man. It's just looking at that picture, man, that Roseanne sent me, seeing where I was just a year ago, a little over a year ago, and where I'm at now is amazing. It's a miracle, and that's God working in my life, absolutely. And that's something that I found at the foundation this time too, and it's thanks to the fellowship and small instances here and there and everything like that, man. It's just, when I say I really wanted to kill myself and I have not known happiness my entire life, I mean that. I've always been the victim. Today, I don't have to be the victim. Today, I can smile. Today, I can make jokes. Today, I can speak nervously, but I can speak. I don't know, man. If you're new here, man, if you're going through feelings, you know, bad emotions, I promise you it gets better. Stick it out. I never thought I would make it a year, man. I thought I was going to die that death or kill myself. You know, that's what I thought my only options were for so long. And I'm just extremely grateful today. And just stick it out, man. I'm telling you, miracles happen. You're looking at one, that's for sure. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you for letting me speak.